Hello. People, few minutes for people to get on. Hello. Just got notified about the live event on my calendar. Yep, I'm there. I'm here. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us here in our home, in our inside cabin on board Serenity of the Seas. I feel pretty good. I wouldn't say in our inside cabin on board Serenity of the Seas. I feel pretty good. I wouldn't say I'm a cruise. Why wouldn't I smile? It's incredible. And actually, there's only like 750 people maybe on this cruise right now. It's like having a yacht to ourselves. It's like a VIP super yacht. So that's what makes me smile, just being on this experience, this world cruise. So, but this is Ask Me About My Career at NASA. I worked at NASA, the Kennedy Space Center, for about 34 years. I hired in 1985 to Lockheed. Hi from Dublin. I spent 5.5 years with Lockheed Space Operations, working on the Space Shuttle main engines. And after that, I left the Space Shuttle program. Somewhere in there, I switched over from Lockheed to NASA proper. I was a civil servant. Worked on Space Shuttle main engine avionics, the 3 liquid fueled engines on the back of the Space Shuttle. And then I went off to work ground systems development and start working on new firing rooms or the computers that launch the rockets. I did some advanced technology stuff and ended my career on SLS and Orion, working a bunch of jobs in relation to the launch control system, the computers that control everything, interface with the flight computers on board Orion and SLS and the upper stage. So that's what I did. I did a bunch of other things. And so if anybody's got questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably just ramble about things I've done on my career. I really enjoyed working on the Space Shuttle program in my younger days when I was a young engineer. I loved. So when I hired in, they had procedures and everything written when I was a young engineer. I loved. So when I hired in, they had procedures and everything written to. Oh, thank you. Just like the Aurora Borealis, it seems like everyone on the planet got to see except for us because we're near the equator right now. So we're loving all the pictures of the Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis last night. We did not get to see it because we're at about 15 degrees north latitude currently, heading towards the Seychelles. So I think we're one of the few on the planet that seem to have missed it. Hello. So I enjoyed working on the Space Shuttle main engines. It was a system that you could get your arms around. It had everything. I was a computer engineer, so I went to college for computer engineering, and so working on the computer that was mounted on the engine was exciting for me. It has not only computers, but it has sensors, it has hydraulics, it has pneumatics, it has all kinds of control things. So Northern California by Oregon, didn't see it. Supposedly it was all the way down on the East Coast. People in North Florida saw it, I think.
Yeah, there's photos from St. Augustine and stuff.
Yeah, we saw people in St. Augustine's put photos up on Facebook. Thank you for watching us. Satellite internet works. Yeah, I'm sorry. That kind of drops out. We've got good connection right now. We've got Starlink back on the ship, so too much light pollution around it. So people outside of Melbourne supposedly saw it in Australia, so that's exciting. Port St. Lucie, really? Wow. That's
there's lots of
so they would have been able to see it in Central Florida. That's awesome. So we will keep showing our journey because we love, this is what we're doing. This is our voyage. This is our once in a lifetime ultimate world cruise. So
I've been a dandy long, so I used to live
was
there.
NASA LGBTQ friendly? Yes, it was actually. NASA is very LGBTQ friendly. I had not transitioned when I was at NASA. I didn't transition formally until last year. There were times when I thought about transitioning, but I didn't. So, oh, thank you all. We've got a new video coming out on our YouTube channel this afternoon. It'll be about noon Eastern time. It will cover Phu Mai in Vietnam and Singapore. So, yeah, we'll have all the vids. We have both YouTube and we'll have TikTok. And of course, we're doing like a daily journal on our Facebook page, Tam and Bobby Adventures. So if you want to join that, you can follow that's kind of like our journal. The TikTok is kind of like running commentary. And then, YouTube's kind of like day in a life. This is what we do. And where are y'all off to after the cruise? Probably exploring some of the United States, driving around, visiting some of the national parks and things we'll probably do. Thank you all for watching all the videos. That really means a lot. So we have a whole video on how me and Tam met. If you go to our TikTok page, there's a pinned post that has our backstory. Short answers, we met on a cruise on Voyager of the Seas coming into Fiji, but if you want to watch the pinned post with all of our backstory on how we met and how we ended up, somebody from Melbourne, Australia and Florida came to be married. So so our Facebook page is Tam and Bobby Adventures. So you can search it. It's a public page. You can follow us. And so right now we are living in Florida. And Florida's not the greatest place. There's a lot of anti-trans bills in there. So after this cruise, TikTok, we'll do, TikTok and YouTube and as well as Facebook and what we're doing. So thank you. Thank you all. You're in West Palm Beach. We're up towards Central Florida area. I worked at NASA, Kennedy Space Center. So graduate Purdue in mechanical engineering. What's the path to NASA? So the best path to NASA for engineering college students is what they call the pathways. And the easiest is to get a job as a support contractor out there working with NASA and get prove yourself as a support contractor, and then usually you can find a way to get in onto NASA, which is what I did. I worked for Lockheed for 5.5 years, and then I switched over and became a civil servant working for NASA. And my counterpart who worked NASA brought me over. He came and said, "Hey, if you ever thought about working for NASA?" And I said, "Yeah, actually I had." But actually in college, my grades were not good enough for NASA. NASA required 3.5 or something like that. My GPA was a little lower than that. Long story. College life, living 1,200 miles from home, young kid. So I attended Florida Institute of Technology. I think they go by Florida Tech now, but at the time it was Florida Institute of Technology. And I graduated in 85, and in June, and then in July of 85, I started working at the Kennedy Space Center for Lockheed Space Operations. Thank you. So this is my Mary Magdalene wig. We named
Mary
them all.
Margaret.
Margaret, sorry. Mary Margaret wig.
Magdalene.
Yeah, that's somebody completely different. Anyway, I am not originally from Florida. I was born in Connecticut, but I moved to Florida to go to college and just kind of stayed there. Have I ever been to Ireland? I have. Tam has not, and we go to Cove on this cruise, so we will be in Ireland. I spent like a week in Ireland in 1998.
I have Irish ancestry.
Tam does have Irish ancestry, so
I haven't been there yet.
Haven't seen us in a month. Oh, we had some issues with the For You page, but hopefully I think we're back. We're in Connecticut. I grew up in a place called Gales Ferry. It's by Groton, New London, Mystic, that kind of area. So southeast Connecticut. I don't have any biological kids, but I have kids with Tam, through Tam and through my first marriage. My favorite job at NASA. So, I liked my early years working on the Space Shuttle Man Engine program because it was all technical stuff, and technical problems you can address a lot easier. They're less stress. When I got later in my career and I was, system engineering, integration manager, operations manager, you had to worry about budget and schedule and people, and that was a lot more stressful than the technical side of it. It's true, GPA is just jumping through hoops. So So I do not have any biological kids. I have 2 daughters with Tam, and I have 2 step granddaughters. So, what was it like at work when the Challenger exploded? I was in Fire Room 3 at the engine avionics console. It was a very cold morning. I had a parka jacket on coming in. They had left the water deluge system on kind of like a slow feed during the night so that the pipes didn't freeze, so there was icicles everywhere. It looked unreal that morning coming in. And then, when they launched, we saw. I remember because I was on the engine console, and the engines throttle down to go through maximum dynamic pressure, and they go down to about 65%, and then they throttle back up to 104%, and then they give. And so we were like watching that and talking about, oh, the engines are back up to full throttle, and then we heard the call over the air to ground. It said, go at throttle up. And then we started talking. I was asking questions. I'm like, well, they've already throttled up. And it's like, yeah, they've throttled up. And then it's like just a call that said, everything looked good at throttle up. And then all of a sudden, we lost all the data. Had just 3 down arrows on our display, and all the data went static. And I looked at the TV monitor, and there was just a big puff of white cloud there. And we kind of just waited hoping to see an orbiter come out of the cloud. We thought, well, okay, it's gonna do a return to launch site abort, or something was going to happen, and it was just dead silent in the room. And then for quite a while, and then the camera pulled back. I think they switched to a camera from the top of the VAB roof that saw stuff falling into the ocean, and it hit home, that it had exploded. They talked about sending out rescue. We still thought there was hope of rescuing the crew, at least in my young, naive mind. So then we were in there for a couple hours, hard copying all the data. We had to leave everything in the firing room. We couldn't take anything out. It was all impounded. And so a couple hours later, we were able to leave the firing room, and just everyone was in a state of shock, It took me years afterwards. There was years where I would remember that day and go back easily where everyone was in the room, who was sitting next to me. During the Columbia tragedy, you mean? So I had left the shuttle program by the time we lost Columbia. I was working on some advanced technology stuff. I was actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had actually toured a bunch of VIPs around the Space Center on launch day when we launched Columbia. All of the chief information officers of all the centers were in town for a meeting, and so I gave them a tour around the Space Center. And then during the mission, I went out to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a nuclear propulsion conference that was going on. And I didn't get up, even though I knew it was coming in over Albuquerque. And I didn't wake up that morning to go out and see it, because we'd seen shuttle landings so many times, And then my wife called me and said, we lost Columbia. And I'm like, well, what do you mean we've lost Columbia? It was coming into landing. How do you lose it? And then I'm like, oh, I realize what you're saying. So, yeah. So that was, those are bad days. And those are the days that define you and define how you're going to handle it and how you're going to recover from those things. So, yep, we're still on the ship. What are NASA's connections with Australians? Are any Australians working with them? I don't know a lot of Australians that are working with NASA. Australia now has a space program. That's that's kind of why, in a long-about way, why Tam is in the United States and I'm not in Australia. Is I was working at NASA still, and there wasn't a space program or space jobs in Australia for me to move to Australia when we started, getting serious. And so Tam ended up coming to America, and I continued to work at NASA until I retired. So my stepfather worked on shuttle program in the 90s. Columbia was devastating. It was devastating. Both Challenger and Columbia were devastating. Do you have to pay for your lattes? Nope, they're included in the Ultimate World Cruise. Tam is Australian. So we're all watching on TV. Yeah, it is. It's a defining moment, sure. I know Boeing and their Starliner has got a launch scheduled coming up soon, and I wish them luck. You know, SpaceX is doing amazing things. I wish them great luck. They have not had their bad days yet, and I hope they never do. But that will define how they handle those things. So I was at NASA Kennedy Space Center from 1985, and I retired in 2019, in end of September. Yeah, I mean, everyone had it because we had Krista McAuliffe, the first teacher in space aboard. So it was piped into all the schools around the country, and all the school teachers had it. Yeah, I know, and that's and there was also a gentleman who worked for Raytheon, who was on Challenger, who had planned to be on the shuttle that launched before. So Columbia launched a few weeks before Challenger. It was I think mission 61C, and he got bumped from Columbia to Challenger because at the time, Congressman Bill Nelson from Florida, on the Appropriations Committee, talked his way into getting a mission with NASA, and so they put Bill Nelson, because of his schedule, on the Columbia mission, and they bumped this guy who worked for Raytheon to the Challenger, and so he ended up being on Challenger when they launched. So your niece just started with NASA. Well, she'll love it. I really enjoyed my time at NASA. It's an amazing place to work. They always seem to be voted the best place to work in the federal government. It's just an incredible experience. I always was into space. You know, I was a space geek from early on. You know, when I grew up in the 60s, and, you know, we were early in the space program. I had a uncle that worked for RCA, and he designed the color TV camera that went on the lunar rover. And so he used to bring me NASA paraphernalia from the Apollo program. And so if you missed the beginning of this, or if you come in late, I'm going to download this live at the end, and we'll eventually upload it to our YouTube channel. So you can always go back and catch it. So are you a flight engineer? So I was a computer engineer as by college. I worked on the Space Shuttle main engine as what they called a subsystem engineer, basically a guy that was responsible for a certain subsystem on the rocket. I watched Star Trek as a kid, yep. And so that's cool. Apollo had a lot of people working on it. And so I was what they called subsystem engineer. Later on, I had more formal system engineering training. If you know what system engineering is, that discipline of study. I was a system engineering and integration manager for a while in my career. I was an operations manager for the command and control system. What do you say to all the people that say the moon landing never happened? There's actually a picture that was just released of, I think it's Japan's orbiter, that took pictures of Apollo 11 and Apollo 12's lunar modules that was left on the lunar surface. So you can actually see it in these pictures from orbit. So, I mean, denying that the moon landing happened is kind of silly, but, you know, people do it. Software engineering is very important. I was a computer engineer, but I focused more on the software side. Basically, the reason I was a computer engineer, not an electrical engineer, is E.M. Fields. But I always liked computers. And actually, in college, I studied Motorola 68000, which when they got a Block 2 version of the computer that we put on the main engines in 1991, it was powered by a Motorola 68000 microprocessor, which was the one I studied in college, so I had a leg up on that. So, and so my kind of claim to fame in the shuttle program was I went and looked at the source code of all the software, the ground software and the flight software, and I understood what the software did in the computers. And so whenever there was a problem, I could get a memory dump, I could look at the dump, I could analyze it, I could say, hey, here's what the issue is. And so that was kind of my personal claim to fame within the within the thing. You know, people that say we didn't land on the moon, I'm just not going to respond. I mean, it's kind of silly at this point. Hopefully, when we will be in Island, we'll be in Cove. How did they pass through the Van Allen radiation belt? They can now, and they could then. So part of the I would say the only thing I would say about the Van Allen radiation belt is the electronics back in the Apollo program were small scale integration and much more robust. The thing with modern electronics and very large scale integration and those circuits is they're more susceptible to high energy radiation in space, and so you've got to do more things to protect them. But we're more than possible. We're more than able to get through the Van Allen radiation belt now, just as we were then. So, I am not lying. So I'm sorry. Wife is an E. She does not enjoy coding and has taught me to appreciate those who do. Thank you for the heart thing. How did the president talk on a landline if there were no lines to the moon? The landline connected to Houston, which converted it into air-to-ground radio, which then sent the signal via radio waves to the moon. It's not that difficult. Helped design the engine that brought Apollo back from the moon. That's cool. Worked at Aerojet. It was a very simple engine, solid fuel, or not solid fuel, but hypergolic fuel, which is what you want if it's got to absolutely work, the fewest moving parts that you can have. So that's really cool that your dad worked on that.
I don't know what that means. Bulky.
Hi, appreciate everyone who's come in for the live. So thank you. Do you think there's life on other planets? Yes, absolutely. It would be inconceivable that we're the only ones in the vastness of space. There was actually a guy on as Richmond Talks a few legs ago. It was from Toronto. He was an astronomer, and I was gonna talk to him because he said something that makes my brain hurt, and I never got a chance to talk to him about it. But he said in his talks that the universe is infinite, and he also said the universe is expanding, and those two things in my mind don't make sense together, because if it's infinite, it can't be expanding because you know. Infinity plus a billion is still infinity. It doesn't go anywhere. So I can understand the universe is infinite, or I can understand it's expanding and practically, for all intents and purposes, it's really big. It's limitless. It doesn't have a bounds. You could say it doesn't have a bounds, but to say it's infinite kind of hurts my brain a little bit. Are you Pinnacle on the World? Not yet. We will be in New York. Do you understand how disappointed God is with you? No, not really at all. Thank you, though. Is it true we can only fly in low Earth orbit? No. I mean, that's all we have been in the last, I don't know how many years. We did send Orion out around the moon back in 2022, and we've got another Artemis mission coming up later this year, I believe, Artemis 2, to go send humans around the moon. Do you still see your colleagues from work? I don't see them too much right now because I'm on a world cruise, but I do communicate with them through social media. I just actually met through social media a lady that works out at the Space Center that we've been communicating with, who worked in the Launch Control Center there and so we've been been following some of the testing that's going on through her. So yeah, I agree, Brandon. Expanding and infinite don't make any sense. Those are kind of like... So some of the things, I think the coolest job title I had, even though it didn't really mean anything, was supportability lead for non-terrestrial systems, because it sounds really cool because it's got the word non-terrestrial in it. But really, we were trying to figure out how to do supply chain if you were having a lunar base. And we talked to the Army Corps of Engineers in their cold research lab up in New Hampshire, I think it is, and because they do the ones that outfit McMurdo Bay in Antarctica, and so we talked to them for how do they do supply chains, kind of looking at how we would do supply chains if we had a lunar base and those kind of things. Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to share my experiences. I agree, Tam is worth every cent, but I was never a millionaire. Some of the things, as it was really the people that you meet. There's so many great people that work at NASA, both in all the different centers. We worked in, is NASA a safe place for LGBT employees? Absolutely. How did I get my job with NASA? I worked for Lockheed Space Operations Company for 5.5 years, and then my NASA counterpart asked me to come over to NASA, and so I joined then. How did I get my job at NASA at Lockheed Space Operations? I kind of harassed him a little bit. They had a job fair down at FIT, and I looked at it, I talked to him, and he's like, well, the guy who was down there said, we don't have any jobs right now, but here's my phone number, call me, and if we get a job, I'll see if I can get you in. And of course, at the time, FIT is in Melbourne, Florida, and Lockheed was up in Titusville. Even though it was both Brevard County, it was a long distance number by then. So he's like, just call collect, just because I'm a college student, right? Call collect, and I'll and ask, and we got jobs. So I would call like every day or every couple of days, like, hey, do you got any jobs yet? Collect, and he's like, nope, nothing yet. And then just like a week or two later, I called collect, and he's like, I actually have a job if you're interested. And I like he read it off to me, something about computers I didn't really know, and I'm like, I'll take it. Doesn't matter, I take it. And so I started working there and dug in and really loved it. I got lucky, I believe, working on the space shuttle main engines. So let's see. Sorry if I've missed some questions. I was kind of get long-winded when Tam has got their job cut out for them today. I'm sorry. Thank you, Tam, for all the work you're doing. Can black holes expand? I really don't know. I'm not an astrophysicist. I don't have that level of physics, so thank you. This is one of my favorite wigs, too. Yeah, that's what he said, call collect. Nowadays, I don't think the young people understand call and collect, because is there still long distance in the country? I guess because all of our phone plans and cell phone plans seem like have unlimited, the United States and Canada and all those other things. People don't really understand about long distance. Will the space shuttle program be revived? Nope, not at all. The shuttles are on display at museums. Atlantis is at the Kennedy Space Center. Endeavour is out at LA. And Discovery is up in at the Smithsonian. So those were the 3 remaining space shuttles that flew were. If you ever have a meetup, I'd definitely come. Oh, thank you. That's something we could consider for Florida people. Say, hey, we're going to meet at a certain place and just kind of get together and talk. I would go to, if you haven't been to the Kennedy Space Center, I would go and do the visitor center. I personally think the Atlantis exhibit is very moving. For me, it's like seeing an old friend. I come back and so nope, the Earth is not flat. Been there. NASA's been there. We've proven it. So, whatever return to NASA, I would go back as a support contractor probably for a little while, and that's something I've maybe considered. Probably not as a civil servant because it messes with all the retirement stuff that I'm doing. So if I go back as a civil servant, they suspend your retirement and all this other pension. It's easier to come back as a civil servant. As a support contractor. But I would support the space program if there was an opening, if there's something they needed, I would be happy to go do that. Moon landing was real. Yep. How long has Voyager got to go? That's a good question. The power is decreasing, but it's still got a ways to go. They're managing it fairly well. Australia is one of the places we're talking about moving to after the cruise. We haven't made any decisions yet, but you call it a reverse charge call in Australia? Yeah. So anyway, that's what we've been doing. I could go back as a support contractor after the cruise, especially as we get close to like Artemis 3 and the human landing on the moon. If there's a need for me out there, if there's something, I haven't talked to anyone about it, but I would be open probably to go back for a little bit. Could do a TED Talk, I guess. I am enjoying retirement. I'm on an Ultimate World Cruise, so could you see the Northern Lights from space? Yes, it's actually a unique view. If you've looked at, you Google videos, astronauts from the International Space Station have got videos of the Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis from space. And it's a different viewpoint, obviously, than what you can see on Earth, but you can see that. Favorite places so far on the cruise? French Polynesia, Moorea was beautiful. Of course, Antarctica was beautiful. How many times has America been on the moon? If you're talking humans, we landed on Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 14, 15, 16, and 17. So 6 times we've had humans on the moon. So 12 men, have walked on the moon. We've launched a lot of other probes and things like that to the moon, but did I ever work with Terry Virts? Not that I know of. I'm not really good with names, but I don't know that I know them. What are your plans for Africa? We have West Africa is dangerous for us LGBTers. So yeah, Ghana is the only one that we're going to that is particularly bad. So we're going to stay on the ship in Ghana, but everywhere else looks like it's okay. How much of Antarctica? We just sailed by Antarctica. We didn't actually get to go off on the land, but we went through Geralt Straits and Paradise Bay, and it was surreal. It was absolutely beautiful. Seychelles are beautiful. We've got 2 Seychelles stops, and we've got an excursion at one, and the second one is a small island. We're thinking we're just going to go do some snorkeling at a beach. So, do you think a plane can fly on Mars? I would think so. They have a helicopter that's flown on Mars. NASA sent the Ingenuity helicopter that's flown around. It's different, obviously, because of the different gravity and air density there. That's a good question. I'm not an aerospace engineer. I would, maybe I'll ask my granddaughter, who graduated from aerospace engineering. I'm supposed to talk to her after this TikTok live. She works for Relativity Space Company, graduated aerospace engineering from Mississippi State, and might have a better handle on airplanes that can fly on Mars. I may ask her about that. I don't know the current date for Artemis. I'm kind of out of the loop a little bit. I think it's towards the end of this year. Is Artemis 2? To land on Antarctica, the ship has got to be can only have like
under 500 passengers.
500. Thank you, Tam. Under 500 passengers. So, not really. It's just I have 2 granddaughters. One went aerospace engineering. The other one went psychology route. I can understand the engineering side of it. The psychology one, I don't really. That's not my field. But she's doing an amazing job too, down in South Florida as a recovery therapist. So both are doing really well. And so I've got a daughter in Australia that works with disability support, doing wonderful, and another daughter back in Florida that's keeping our puppy alive at the moment. So later this year. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for coming on and listening. I tend to ramble sometimes when I start talking about NASA, and apologize for that. But if you have specific questions on NASA, I can focus a little better. Otherwise, I kind of like free wheel. So when we were working on what was going to be this was post space shuttle program. I was working on a ground system development for a new launch control system, and we got to go out to Houston. That's where we test our software out there. And they had an avionics lab called SAIL, which was Shuttle Avionics Integrated Laboratory. And we went out there with the new control system to test our software for the first time. And I had friends that worked in Mission Operations Directorate in the main Mission Control Center. And so I talked to one of them and said, hey, I've got a group out here. Can you get us into the shuttle motion simulator where the astronauts train? And it's like a 6 degree, it's like one of those amusement park rides. It's 6 degree of freedom, moves, and it's got an entire cockpit for a space shuttle in there. And so you start vertically, they strap you in, they do the whole harness and everything, and then they launch you into space and get into orbit, or you can do entry and landing. And so it broke into 3 groups, and we went through, and that was really fun. That was a really amazing experience. So thank you. Did I ever get to meet Elon Musk? No, I never met Elon Musk. I'll just leave it at that. Is it common to retire as early as you did? So I had like 28 and a half years officially with the federal government, and I worked 5.5 years with Lockheed, and the federal government requires 30 years to retire with full retirement benefits. But they offered what they call an early out. And so they said, hey, if you're thinking of retiring soon, we will offer this early out, and you can retire with under 30 years of experience, and you'll soon. We will offer this early out, and you can retire with under 30 years of experience, and you'll leave to that, so it ended up being like 29 years. But I retired as if I'd had 30 years in, so that was good. Do you believe in life on other planets beyond the ones we know? Absolutely. I think it would be very bizarre if we were the only place where life happened. That seems to me mind-bogglingly strange. Oh, thank you. I think this might have been Tam's dress at one time, and I stole it. Did I steal this one?
Yeah.
Yep, this was Tam's dress, and I stole it. Your brother works at NASA. That's cool. What's for dinner? I think there's actually some kind of calzone thing they're having in the main dining room. That looked good to me tonight. We were joking. We were having salads for lunch, trying to be more healthy, but it was taco night. So today at the Windjammer for lunch, so we joked that we had Mexican salad, which was just the tortilla chips and all the salad stuff on top. So we had salad, but it was Mexican salad. I'm sorry if the video's freezing up. It says good connection. I don't know. We're on Starlink and everything seems to be good. So, so much life beyond our imagination. I think, yeah, it would be amazingly strange to believe that we are unique in the world. That would be more. I would be more scared that if we were unique than anything else. So, I'm sorry if the video's playing up. I'm not sure if it's on my end. I'm not connected to VPN or anything. I'm just coming through. So, I will post all of this onto our YouTube channel. It'll probably come out Wednesday. Did I happen to meet Rick Sturco, shuttle astronaut? He grew up in San Diego. I met a lot of them. If they flew, and I don't remember all of them by name, I'm sorry, but if they flew on the space shuttle between 1985 and 2000, then I met them because I had to give a presentation every mission to the flight crew and on the health of our system. Like 2 weeks before launch, they would come down for what they call a countdown demonstration test, and so they would get out to the launch pad, they'd climb in, they would get all strapped in like a regular launch countdown. We'd do an entire launch countdown except we didn't fuel the vehicle. There was no propellants on board. And so when they came out for that test, we would give them a presentation and tell them the state of our system. So how do all people in NASA have pretty high salaries? So the salaries within NASA are all standard. You can go to Google government GS salaries, and they start off from GS9 up to GS15, and then you go into what they call executive service. So I was a GS15 when I retired, and yeah, they're all public knowledge. They're out there. Just Google federal government GS rates. So the Starlink has been excellent on the cruise, and if you think about it, we were in Antarctica. Most remote, desolate place on the planet. Majority of Starlink satellites don't go that far south because most of them are at 54-degree inclination orbit. There's only a small subset that are 79-degree, and only even a smaller subset than that do like true 90-degree. We were down around 65 degrees south latitude, and we had 5 TikTokers doing lives in Antarctica on Starlink. And it was unbelievable that, here you are at this remote, desolate place, and there's at least 5 people live on TikTok, sharing their experience and their journey. It was really incredible. So yes, Starlink's been good. The only places that haven't been good is where they had to turn it off. And so they have to turn it off in China, and I think that's
India.
In India. So China, I think, is due to our laws, and India is due to India's laws, I think. But either way, those two, when we were in those areas, they had to turn Starlink off, and we had to use their old system, which was like kind of going back to dial-up. It really was stressful. Sorry if the live is glitchy. Increased naval exploration. I know. I think there ought to be a lot more exploration of the oceans. There's a lot that we don't know about the oceans. I'm very in favor of that. People are always like, why don't we spend money on this? I'm like, why don't we spend money on both? Why does it always have to be this or that? Why can't you support both things? So, the country's got enough money to do a lot of things. We just, have to make a choice to do those things. Mediterranean is going to be busy. Mont retired and uncle still worked there. One in Ohio and now back in Florida. Ohio at Glenn Research Center. I've been there once. I went up for a training class. That's the only time I was at Glenn. They were really super nice people up there. Actually, we talked to the engineers, and they showed us where to get where the scalpers will hang out to go see an Indians game. They're not called Indians anymore. I don't know what they're called, but their baseball team was up there. They told us where to go to get the best scalping tickets. Told us where the cheap parking was. They were awesome. Loved the folks at Glen. Hey, morning all. So, well, thank you all. We keep doing our morning videos. It's kind of hard. Sometimes they don't come out in the morning, I know, because of the time zones. We're currently GMT +4, so we're 8 hours earlier than Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. So, but, would I have joined the Space Force? No, not really. I'm not a military person. I've never joined the military. I was civilian side of it. But I appreciate all the things that they do, especially in Air Force, Space Command and everything. I've worked closely with a lot of the Air Force people in Space Command. Oh, thank you for the rose. Thank you for the... Is that an ice cream cone? I love ice cream. Or is it a shell? I don't know. And rose. Thank you all. Oh, thank you. So I've worked with a lot of people in the military. I respect what they do. I have was never in the military. But I worked closely with the Air Force. For a while, I was part of the 21st Century Launch, we called it 21st Century Launch Complex program. So it was basically money that was earmarked to upgrade the infrastructure at the Kennedy Space Center and the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station at the time. And so I managed we called it the Range Interface and Control System. So we spent money and we upgraded the lightning detection system out at the Air Force side and on the ground side. We did upgraded the Doppler wind profiler at the Kennedy Space Center. We upgraded a lot of the infrastructure out there, a lot of the bandwidth, and really kind of tried to modernize a lot of the systems. So that was a really fun job working with the Air Force and the civilians that support the Air Force out there. Did you ever work in the classified programs? Not really. When I hired into the space shuttle program, we still launched DoD payloads, so we had to get secret clearance to know things like the expected time of liftoff and whether that was the intended launch time. So, hey Brianna, hi. Hey, somebody had a question earlier, and I didn't know the answer. I thought you might answer. Was can airplanes fly on Mars with the lower gravity and the lower atmosphere? And I don't know. I know they have a helicopter in Ingenuity that flies there. I would imagine airplanes could fly on Mars, but it's going to be different design and everything. So I'm not an aerospace engineer, but I said I would talk to you afterwards. Anyway, so where was I? Totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, secret clearance. So we had to have secret clearance. So some of the things that we couldn't talk about was obviously when we were going to launch. It became unclassified when we launched, obviously, because it's visible. You can tell, hey, there's a rocket launching. But what remained classified was the intended time of launch, because it got to what's the intended orbit you're planning to get to. Obviously, whatever payload you had was secret. We have a remote robot arm in the shuttle that's on the side of the payload bay that can grab satellites and take them out and catch them again. You could either be so it wasn't classified if there was an arm on board, but it was classified if the arm was on the port side or starboard side for some reason. Have you read about the solar storm that happened in the U.S.?
Yeah.
So I've been getting, I follow Keith Crowling, a friend of mine who runs NASA Watch, and I'm tied on to his. I get all the alerts. They're sending out alerts for the solar radiation and stuff. So I've seen all of the alerts all day yesterday and everything. We did not see any of the lights because we're approaching the equator, so we're like in the worst possible place to see northern lights. But I love what she can tell and how much is done in Ohio. So Ohio is, when I was doing stuff with Ohio, I know they do Orion stuff there. They take Orion and put it in the big chamber there to do environmental testing. When I was there, they were big. There was a group that was working on nuclear propulsion, and that was all happened out of Glenn Research Center in Ohio. And so when I talked to various people, a lot of times it was about their looking for funding to do advanced technology in nuclear propulsion engineering and those kind of things. So yeah, we did not get to see the aurora. I heard it was all the way down in Florida. You could see it, so it was insane. First thing this morning, I had my cousin or nephew in Connecticut. I saw his Facebook post, and he's got the aurora borealis. I'm like, oh, I wonder where he is. And then I saw a bunch of other friends from Connecticut posting pictures, and I'm like, oh, it was visible in Connecticut. And then it's like it was visible in a lot of places. So we'll have them in Melbourne tonight. Okay, cool. I assume that's Australia, but let's see. So I think you need them more. Let's see. So other than working in advanced propulsion, I enjoyed working on what they called small business innovative research grants. So it's something that both the DoD and NASA did. NASA has a pot of money that they manage for small businesses to work on new technology, and they have another one for small businesses and universities called STTR that requires a university hook in there. And I was the chief technical officer of a certain area for a while for command and control, and I really enjoyed that because you got to hear all the propulsions, you got to read the presentations, you got to rank them and present them to a board that made the decisions on where the money was going. But it was really, really interesting working with small companies and businesses as well as universities as they were pushing the envelope for new technology and things. So that was really, really funny. So where are we today? Today we are in the Arabian Sea. We are heading towards the Seychelles. I think the nearest land is still Oman, but we're getting close to being the tip of Africa, being not the tip, but the little jetty bit that comes out on the side. The little jetty bit is that part, as Africa, the Gulf of, as you come up towards the Red Sea, there's a bit that juts out. That's going to be our closest land really soon. Right now it's still Oman, I think. I know the mappy thing I love doing is so easy. Just take a picture of the screen. Do the universities that gave the funds then have students studying there? Usually universities will have a principal investigator that's a professor, and usually several grad student research aides, and then sometimes you'll have undergrads, but mostly it's grad students that are doing the work, and then a professor is like the principal investigator. How is the laundry system? So on board we have three. Okay, you answer that. Yep. Thank you. Did NASA accept my transition? So I transitioned after I left NASA. I retired in 2019, and I started officially transitioning June of 2023. So I'm sure they would. And matter of fact, I know trans people that work out at the Space Center, so I know they were very accepting. So day 50. Yeah, that's about when we started doing TikTok. We've been doing YouTube since the beginning, but I think TikTok we started somewhere near Buenos Aires. That's when Mark Sebastian came on and he convinced us that TikTok wasn't just for young kids. Have I heard of aerogel, as in the beads that are insulators? Funded a lot of those research as well. Actually got stories about that. I mean, the aerogel beads, if they're what you're talking about, they're very good insulators. And I got really frustrated because we have these cryogenic spheres out at the pad for liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen, and we got to a point where we had to replace the insulation in them. And after spending I don't know how much money studying and developing aerogel technology, we didn't use it to, and I got so pissed that hey, we've been funding this guy for years and years developing this technology. It's ready. And they decided not to use it because it was new technology. They wanted something more proven. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. So anyway, sometimes it's frustrating working it within something more proven. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. So anyway, sometimes it's frustrating working it within the bureaucracy, but it can be stressful, it can be fun, all at the same time.
It does freeze and buffer, but we're in the middle of the Arabian Sea.
We're pretty much in the middle of the Arabian Sea right now. Coming into that, it's all part of the Indian Ocean down there, but we've got 2.5 days before we get to the Seychelles, so Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. It says good connection on my end, and we're on Starlink, and it seems to be good. So, um, thank you. This was Tam's dress. I stole it. I stole a lot of Tam's dresses, clothes, and our daughter Jordan's clothes, and then bought a bunch of outfits while we were on the cruise. So, um, thank you. But so all those things were really fun and challenging. I enjoyed doing that. Hiring, we would get interns whenever I said the Pathways was the best way for college students to get into NASA, and we would always get resumes and things for intern students each year because we'd have a whole list of so many slots for interns each year, and so I would go and review a lot of the resumes, except I would take out kind of like all the information about who they were, the name, sex, where they went to school, that kind of stuff, and just kind of talk about their grades and what they did, and kind of rank it that way based on how well they wrote, if they were in a good. I'm not really good at writing, but that's important to be able to have a good grasp of words, to good communication skills, and what they did, and how well it fit, and what they wanted to do, and what we were doing here, was that a good fit for that person, and then we'd rank them appropriately and send it to a board that would make decisions. So, you're welcome. We're enjoying this cruise, and we're sending we're providing a. This is what we're doing. This is our voyage. This is our life. So, yeah, it could be actually related to the solar events, because Starlink is satellite communication, even though it says it's good connection. I don't know. So, how old were you when you decided to ultimately become your career? So I always wanted to play a part in space, I think, and I only applied to the Kennedy Space Center when I got out of college because that's where I wanted to work. I was always interested. It's funny, when I was a kid, I loved Star Trek, the original series, and the character I loved on Star Trek was Scotty, because he was the engineer. He was the guy who worked in the engine room, and he was the miracle worker. He always got things fixed and things. And so eventually I started working on the Space Shuttle main engine, and I was basically Scotty from Star Trek. I worked on a spacecraft's engine system. And I actually got to meet James Doohan one day. He was in Melbourne, Florida, signing autographs and stuff like that. I came up to him and I thanked him. I said, you were my inspiration for what I do now. I said, you were an engineer on a starship, and I'm now, I'm now an engineer on the engines of a spaceship. So it was really kind of a special thing, and he, I think he was a little touched by that. That was really kind of cool. There. I don't know. I'm doing an Alaska cruise, and it came out over Wi-Fi.
They're just asking about the cost of Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi can be very expensive. We got it included as part of our world cruise. I think you probably answered that. I wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah, we answered. Shelley answered, and I answered.
Yep. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we're not. This part of it should be pretty good communication. I know this area specifically for NASA. We communicate with the Tracking and Data Relay Satellites, TDRS, and this is part of the world where there's kind of not a lot of coverage, because the satellites, they have two satellites, one in the east and one in the west, to get the full coverage, because they have to see Goldstone, New Mexico, because that's where the ground station is for TDRS. And so there's an ellipse around India and right about here where TDRS doesn't have any cover, but I don't think SpaceX Starlink has the same issues. So
someone just set an alarm to get up for your live because it's not even 6 a.m. That's crazy.
Thank you for doing that. I'm sorry, it's hard to pick a time that works for everyone because time zones are crazy, and I figured this was at least 8 a.m. on the east coast of Florida. It was about 1 p.m. in London, and about 10 p.m. I think in Australia, at least on the east coast of Australia, and so it's kind of hard to find a time that works for everyone. I'm sorry. Thank you for getting up early and coming to the live. So a lot of the people that got off for African safaris were coming back on either in the Seychelles or Cape Town. So I think we'll be 900 eventually on this leg, but we're a little over 700 right now because a lot of people got off for African safaris and will be coming back on. It's almost, we joked today, it's almost like our VIP personal yacht, because I think it's like 1-for-1 crew to passengers right now. So I met Tam on a cruise, Voyager of the Seas. There's a pinned post on our TikTok channel that is our backstory on how we met and everything. So Grandpa worked there in Cleveland. That's awesome. Are you coming back in Seychelles? Others? Oh,
That was
there's
me.
you. Sorry. I'm trying to read, and so I really enjoyed my career at NASA. I would highly recommend it. If you're a college student, I highly recommend the Pathways internship program as the number one. Second option is, get a job as a support contractor or one of the startup companies out there. Earn your keep, or become who you are, and prove that you know what you're talking about and what you're doing, and then you'll be more valuable to come over to civil servants. It's kind of a cross, I think, and probably my granddaughter Brianna can attest to this. Startup companies and things like that are very hands-on. You get to do a lot of work hands-on, and they're very exciting. But there's also risk, right? I mean, NASA offers more stability as a government. If you're looking at your career, looking at a 30-year career of having a family and having guaranteed income and that kind of stuff, is more stable and more guaranteed than contractors. When Challenger blew up, pretty much most of the contractors were laid off. All the NASA people kept their job. Not all of them, because I was a contractor at the time, and I managed to survive the layoffs after Challenger because I was in a group that only had 3 people, and so I was deemed critical skill in the knowledge that I'd retained. So, did you get to work closely with astronauts? So not really closely. We met them 2 weeks before launch to present stuff to them. I met John Glenn a lot. He would always come back after Columbia flew, because he was obviously the commander of STS-1. And whenever Columbia launched, he would be in the orbiter processing facility when Columbia came back, walking down, quote, his ship. And he's a really super nice guy. I've met, of course, Bob Crippen. He was our center director for a while at the Kennedy Space Center. I liked Story Musgrave. He was an interesting character. He was a surgeon. He would come into our briefings with a book in his hand. He'd been reading, and he'd just sit down and he would listen to our stuff, and then he would go on and walk out reading a book. He's a very interesting person. But I'm curious about any experience with UFOs. I don't have any personal experience. I think, I think there's obviously there's unknown things that are going on, but I don't think they're intelligent aliens. Startup is fast-paced and exciting, but there's a lot of pressure to do things right for funding. Yeah, I agree. That's what I figure too, and I think you guys are doing a great job. I'm super excited for Relativity Space. They're 3D printing rockets, and that's way cool. So very exciting to hear. We hired Story to speak at an event. He is an interesting character, isn't he? Very smart. He went on, of course, his most famous thing was the Hubble rescue mission, and I think that he was kind of the lead payload manager for that. But he was very interesting. A lot of the other ones I didn't really get to know too much. Mostly, they spend most of their time out at the Johnson Space Center. That's where they do their training. That's where they do all this stuff. We used to say, they should come out to the Kennedy Space Center more often and talk to the people that have their hands on the hardware, because as somebody who's going to fly in that, you want to make sure that the person that's going to fly in there. You want to have that connection, that that you're not just doing a job, you are getting a spacecraft ready for a human to sit in and fly to space, and so you want to make sure that you've got a connection with them. So thank you. We're having a great journey. That we were really enjoying this. Any risk of pirates? Not really. I don't think. Not for a ship our size. Royal doing another one? I don't know. I think they will. Not right away, probably.
But said maybe for years. It won't be anytime soon.
And I think
they book things a few years out.
And I think what you'll see is maybe some shorter cruises, not a full world cruise. But I think this has opened up some ports for Royal now that they've got some experience in some of these ports. So you may see, I think you'll see like a South America cruise, like we did segment 1, where we went down to Antarctica and back up. I think you may see one of those. Oop, I got to do the puzzle thing. Verification, yay. We're an hour in already, okay. So I think they will do one eventually, but I think they'll do more different ports than they'll expand their port listing upon what they've done. So I would definitely do this again and recommend it to others if we could afford it, but we can't afford it. This was a once in a lifetime. This was our savings going in to see the world. It's like, you don't know how much time you've got on this planet, so travel and see the world while you're able, and that's kind of what so do you know what no, go away. I think we're super excited for the Africa part of the cruise. We really are. And Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius were on our bucket list, and I didn't know what Reunion Island is, but it looks beautiful. I can't wait to go there. And then, of course, we're going to Cape Town. I always wanted to go to Cape Town. I have a nephew, Josh, that works at the Mystic Aquarium. He's a penguin trainer. And he's gone to Cape Town, South Africa, multiple times. He works at the Penguin Sanctuary there, usually in December time frame, which is our winter, but their summer. And so he's been there several times, so I'm looking forward to being able to see that. Oh, thank you. I find doing the mapping thing fun, I think, and I'm glad everyone enjoys it so much. The trip comes to the end September 10th. We get into Miami, and then we will rent a car and drive back home. So that's what we're doing. So thank you all. Mystic's a nice place. We like Mystic. We have 2 safaris planned. They're both day trip safaris. So out of Port Elizabeth, South Africa, we're doing the Addo National Park, which is like an elephant park, I think, and then we're doing a wine safari in Cape Town on the second day, which is a combination wine tasting and safari trip. So that should be fun. Home right now is Central Florida, so we live in Central Florida. What are your sea day plans? So today, I had a friend do my nails, and then I went to the spa and got my eyebrows waxed, and beautiful Ashley tamed my eyebrows a little bit. I think they're looking pretty good. And then I did the live. I'm going to talk to my granddaughter Brianna after this, because we set up time to catch up. Then we'll probably go up and have some drinks with friends and have dinner. And then tonight actually is there's a Eurovision thing going on, so we may go to that. I'm, as an American, the only thing I know about Eurovision is Will Ferrell and his movie, but it's a big thing apparently in the rest of the part of the world. So thank you, Brianna. A friend of mine, actually Cruise Mom, if you know on TikTok, Audrey Cruise Mom did my nails. She's lovely. She's wonderful. She's actually going to do she's going to tint my eyelashes. She's going to tint my eyelashes, which she said will be life-changing.
Making you more high maintenance.
Making me more high maintenance. So I'm excited for that. She put a little dot behind my ear just to make sure I wasn't allergic to the dye stuff. So after that, we'll do it. Hey, Central Florida is a great place to be. I say that. We like the critters. Florida politics is not really great, so there's a lot of anti-trans laws coming in and things like that. We're hoping it gets better.
Oh, someone's been to Reunion Island.
Oh, cool.
I'm excited for Reunion.
We are super excited for Reunion Island.
We're going to have good water lease.
You're also getting your eyelashes tinted for the first time next week. Cruise Mom said it's life-changing. I can't wait. It's supposedly going to be life-changing. So I hope it's life-changing for you too. So hey, that's Adita's daughter. Hey, Adita's daughter. How much the cruise costs? I mean, it varies widely. It's a hard question to answer. I can tell you what we paid, and we have a bunch of circumstances. We booked early.
We're also the cheapest.
We're in an inside room. We booked 10% discount because we paid it off early. We live in Florida, so we didn't need business class airfare. And so for us, it was about $56K a person. So, but you can pay all the way from there up to a lot of money.
That included laundry, internet, ultimate drink package.
Yep.
And the 7 Wonders excursions.
Yep. So there was a lot of stuff included in that. So we both get internet. So Tam's got an internet connection.
That's Elaine who's on board. Is she on board anymore? She got off.
Hey, Elaine, you got off. She got off in Dubai.
Didn't she?
Hi, Elaine. Thank you. We have some little things she made for us. That was so nice of her. Thank you, Elaine. We have little Bobby and Tam resin names.
I'm excited for reunion. I'm excited for Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, and New Reunion Island, and South Africa, and all the other places. I'm just excited for every port from
I don't know if
now
you can
on.
hear Tam. I offered to give Tam a mic, but she said she wasn't going to talk during this video.
Shh. It's 5 p.m.
It's 5 p.m. anyway. We only got about a half hour left, under a half hour left. So I'll give Tam a mic. So since we've kind of moved from my career at NASA to general stuff, so
I didn't want a mic because I don't have any NASA talk.
yeah. So so at Jacob, is that Jacob's? Oh, you can hear Tam perfectly. That's good. Thanks. So we're having a good day. Have you had much rough seas? No, not really.
We had a little.
So from New Zealand to Australia, there was a storm coming up, and that was probably the roughest we had. It was about 20-foot waves.
Well, yeah, it was the Tasman, and then the Drake Passage was about that too.
Yeah.
And then we also had the cyclone coming out of Cairns.
Hey, Gigi from the Space Coast. Obviously, that's where we are. We live on the Space Coast because I work for NASA. So,
I have been to the Kennedy Space Center, and I've done Family Day there with Bobby.
Yeah,
and I've seen what she's worked on, and I've heard the stories 100 times.
So I had many jobs, everything from space shuttle main engine avionics to system engineering integration operations manager to chief architect for ground command and control systems, a bunch of things. I will put this video up on YouTube afterwards. It'll probably go live on Wednesday. I'm kind of doing our cruise adventures on Saturdays and replay of TikTok lives on Wednesday just to kind of keep it going. Hello from Ohio. Have you gone to Italy on this cruise? Not yet.
We are.
We go to Ravenna and a bunch of places in Italy actually. Another place on the other side of Venice, I can't remember the name of it, and then we go around obviously Sicily and up Civitavecchia and Livorno and Portofino, a few other places. So yeah, lots of Italy on this cruise.
Cruise, Mom and Dad are in our living room.
Oh, well, we'll come up to the living room eventually up there. Hi, Cruise Mom and Dad. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you. Audrey is amazing. We love Audrey. Good night from Brisbane, Australia. Safe travels. Thank you. Space is the ocean. Yeah, space is pretty cool.
Night, Jacob.
Good night, all. If you have to leave, I understand. We can't kind of keep everyone in the same. Everyone has got different time zones. There's 24 time zones around the planet. Actually, there's more of those because there's like half-hour ones. India was at 30 minutes different from... So it was at 5 hours, and GMT plus 5 hours and 30 minutes for some weird reason. A lot of people freaked out by that. We didn't freak out because we'd been to Adelaide. So Adelaide is on a 15-minute or 30-minute time zone. It was really weird, so...
We had a big budget for our excursions.
So we booked the gotta see ones before the cruise, and most of the places we just wing it. We go get a local to take us somewhere. It's usually cheaper. It's more than half the price of what Royal charges. We did book a bunch of Royal ones in Africa because it's relatively new and we didn't have a lot of time to plan
and
Africa.
And they gave us money back.
When they did option 1 to do the immersive Africa, they gave us 25% of the affected days. So it was money back that we basically used for excursions. So we did that. So good night from Australia. We're having spaceports at Adelaide.
We could move to Adelaide.
We
could go help the Australian Space Agency.
We could do that. I wonder if they would take an ex-NASA person there for a job.
I reckon.
So we will be back probably 2026-ish to Australia. I think will be the next opportunity. We have things planned already in 2025, but I like the longer wigs too. I do put Roxy on occasionally, usually when I make myself up very much. So I like the long hair Roxy wig. We do have a YouTube. Our YouTube is our channel. It's our life. It's our venture. So it goes back to 2020 after I retired.
She wants one that talks about NASA.
I have some that talk about NASA. I have the first video that talks about NASA on there, and I have this one will be on there. So I probably will do some YouTube lives too. That way you can interact from the YouTube side. Most of the times I just do the TikTok lives and then I post a copy of it on YouTube. But if you go to Tam and Bobby Adventures on YouTube, you'll see all of our videos there. So hello. I love going to Australia. I mean, it's someplace we may move to. We'll have to see. It'll be a few years probably before we move or do something, but we're looking at what are the places we'd want to live. You know, you think about it, how blessed we are to be able to have the opportunity to go around the world and go, I'd like to live here. I'd like to hear. Where's the places around the world that I would like to move to? And just to have that opportunity. When we were in India, and it was an eye-opening experience of people there, you know, and it's like you really feel blessed that you were born just randomly in a country that gave you opportunity that others don't have, that were just randomly born in their country. You know, it's nothing we get to choose. You don't get to choose what country you're born in. You don't get to choose who your parents are. And so it's really, it's like the lotto. You're either lucky and you were born to good parents or bad parents, or you were born in a country with opportunity and advancement, or you're born in a country without opportunity and advancement. So
someone asked me what I like about living on the Space Coast. The thing I like the most is the critters.
yeah.
I love my raccoons and squirrels.
Which support surprised me the most in a good way?
Montevideo.
Montevideo. Uruguay. We had no idea about Uruguay, and we went there, and it was really amazing. It became on the short list as someplace that we could live, you know, in Uruguay. So.
And how do we do the local cash situation? Is that there's usually money exchanges at the ports.
Yes, either that or we go to an ATM. So I have you can get certain ATM cards depending on your financial institution. Like I have one that refunds all foreign fees and it refunds all ATM fees. And so, you know, if I go use the ATM on the ship, say, and they normally would charge like $6 fee to use the ATM, my financial institution will refund that ATM fee, and they refund any international transaction fees. So it's really, really a good financial institution to have. So it looks like India really welcomed you with open arms. So I really appreciated and liked India. It was eye-opening. The security is very tight in India. It was the most tightest places we've ever been. Plus, they've segregated like security lines into male and female, and all the female had to go through security scanners, and then they have a little box area with curtains, and you have to go in, and there's a female security guard that wands you down and make sure you don't have anything in there. Only the females had to go through that. The men just kind of went through and were on their way. So it's kind of an odd experience. It was very different. And the buses, I think we joked we were on a bus, and it's like, this is like nothing we've ever been on in our life.
It was 1960s.
Yeah, it seemed like a 50s, 60s bus. So
that was in Goa.
Was it in Goa? Yeah, when we were heading to the airport. So we have not seen the Northern Lights yet, and everyone has seen them except for us.
We're in a spot where we're not seeing them. Everyone else.
Because we're approaching the equator. We're going to cross the equator again in probably 2 days for the 5th time on this cruise. So we'll be in the southern hemisphere by the time we get to the Seychelles, obviously. So we are not in a position right now to see the northern or southern lights, unfortunately. Love you guys.
Have a good day.
Have a good day, Gigi. Have a good day, everyone. I will probably cut this short soon here, and I appreciate everyone for dialing in and connecting up and asking questions. Thank you, Tam, and any other moderators that were on for doing all the work you guys had to do to control the crowd, as I say. Good and bad. I've gotten a lot of views lately on my videos, but I've gotten a lot of negative stuff too. And so all I can say is engagement is engagement. And, I don't mind engagement. I'm perfectly happy with who I am, and what people think of me does not affect me at all. So everyone's entitled to their opinion. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but we will have the best time. So love you all. Thank you all.
Okay, and just stay there for a second so I can block that idiot.
So thank you for being here, for following our videos, for commenting. I love reading all the comments, responding to the ones I can. Thank you all. I love interacting with all of you. So thank you for following us on our journey. And we will talk to you all later. We'll probably do another one that's more generic with me and Tam, kind of where this ended up, coming up maybe in the next few C-Days. So
What financial institution refunds ATM fees? Charles Schwab.
Charles Schwab. I recommend Charles Schwab. They've been very good to us. So thank you all. Thank you all. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you. I'm going to try and...
Oh, Mother just got on. Hi.
Oh,
bye.
hi, Mother. Sorry. I will post this video. It will go live on our YouTube channel probably Wednesday afternoon Eastern time. I think I try and aim it for about 6 p.m. Eastern time when they go live on Wednesday. So I'm going to try and aim for about that time. That's when this replay of the live will go live onto our YouTube channel. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully we can all get there, Philip. Hopefully we can all get there. So I'll talk to you all later. Bye.